Okay, so from last Friday, we did this one. So you should have it. We're going to use the same format. Convert everything to IJ, add them together, and then kind of convert back and find magnitude and find direction. The problems are going to be a little bit different in each case. So we did that first one. All right, take a look at your second one here. And I drew it out. I think it's I think it's helpful, I should say helpful, to kind of have a visual idea of what's going on. Make sure you might have to write small on that, because I didn't leave you, I left you a good bit of room, but if you write really big, you'll run out. One tugboat exerts a force of 900 pounds with a direction of 80. The other tugboat exerts a force of 1,200 pounds with a direction of 165. Find the direction and magnitude of the resultant force. Basically, we got to add them together. Geometrically, hold on here for a second. Here's our, there's your supply barge, and there's the two forces acting on it. So in this case, it's kind of easier to understand if they're both coming from the same spot. You would create a parallelogram to add them together. Your other option is, it's a lot easier for me because all I got to do is I slide that sucker over there. And then that's your sum. Okay, that's your sum. So, and I'm going to slide it back there. The sum always has to be between the two vectors. You can't fall outside of it. Okay, it's going to be in between there. Now here, it clearly looks like it's in quadrant 2. You got to watch how you draw it, because if you draw it incorrectly, you could kind of have the wrong idea where it's at. So you got to figure out where it's at mathematically, and we will here in a second. All right, so let's call the first one vector U. And what was that one? 900 pounds. And that's vector U. And then we'll call the other one V, and that was 1,200. Convert to IJ. So take vector U, and it's going to be 900 times cosine of 80 degrees I plus sine of 80 degrees J. All right, just use your calculator. Nearest 100 for everything. We're going to do nearest 100 the whole way through. So 2 decimal places. 2 decimal places. And I'm going to pull up my calculator. All right, how do I get rid of this thing? Oh, there it went. All right. All right, what did we say? So 900 times cosine of 80, and then 900 times sine of 80. Make sure you're in degrees, which you should be. All right, so just do that. All right, so right now here for U, what do we end up with? 156.28 I plus 886.33 J. All right, so there's your IJ form. All right, convert vector V, same thing. So vector V equals 1,200 cosine of, what's the degree, 165? 165 I plus sine 165 J. I'm going to get rid of this. And we got rid of it. Coda, look, you got that?
Yeah, it's negative 1,159.11
Okay.
Plus 310.58.
Just make sure we're on the same page. We agree with the numbers? Okay. For now. All right, now that's your you want to convert it to the IJ form. That gives you basically the end point of each vector. Okay, those would be the coordinates of the end vector. Remember, you understand that's not array. It doesn't go infinitely. The arrow tells you which direction it goes. It doesn't tell you it just keeps going on forever. Okay, it goes to that point, it stops. Now we got to add those together. So take u plus v, and we add the I parts together. So 156.28 minus, or plus a negative, however you want to treat it, minus 1159.11 and negative 1002.83. So negative 1002.83 plus, oh, what do I probably make a mistake here, but that's 11, 4, 9, 6, 9, 1196.91. Jay? Okay. All right, so that's your final vector. Now, which quadrant is that in? Which quadrant is that in? Go rows. 2. All right, why do you know that?
I value is negative and the j value is positive.
Good. The I value is negative, so think of it as an ordered pair. So it's a negative I value. And let me make this a little bit nicer. And I should have an I right there. Plus 1196.91 J. And that's a positive J value. So it's got to be in quadrant 2. All right, so now find the magnitude. U plus V is square root of negative 1002.83 quantity squared plus 1196.91 quantity squared. And all right, Gavin, you got that?
Oh, yeah.
All right, let me know what you get when you're done. You got it? Quote.
1,561.49.
But you have to get help back there?
Let's make sure right.
Okay. And then this will be pounds. Okay, so 1561.49. We agree? All right, for that one. Now,
I'm sorry, can you go over real quick how you knew it was in quadrant 2?
all right, think of an ordered pair. So if I had an ordered pair, let me do it up here. Ordered pair, negative 2, 3. You're going to go over negative 2, up 3. It's going to be quadrant 2. Basically, think of this as an ordered pair. So the I is your X, and your J is your Y. Okay?
Yeah, I just forgot because it's been a while.
Nope, that's fine. All right, now our direction. Now sometimes these vectors kind of make it a little bit confusing. We're looking at just strictly the resultant vector. We need its direction. You don't find it directly. So if you just kind of think of it this way, this is the angle our final answer has to be, but we're going to find the reference angle to use that. So the reference angle is going to be the inverse tangent of, basically think of the J value, because that's your Y value, 1196.91 over 1002.83. I'm just going to drop all the negatives and not even worry about them. Just get my answer for that one. Tony, you got what the reference angle is?
I used the negatives, but I got negative 50.
Point
0.04.
0.04.
180 minus that.
And that's fine. That'll give you the same thing. Negative 50. The only reason I do that is so it doesn't confuse cause any confusion when you get a negative answer back. Some people it'll cause confusion. If I make it positive, it's always positive. All right, so it's 50 degrees. So Tony, what's my final answer though?
129.96.
Yep, you're going to take 180 minus 50.04 and 129.96 degrees. Okay. All right, so that's going to be your case there. You got to use the reference angle to find your final direction. Since it's in quadrant 2, it's got to be between 90 and 180. Hopefully that makes sense. And we get 129.96. All right, take a look at the next scenario. All right, I don't know how many future meteorologists we have in here, so sometimes that can cause an issue. A west wind, does that mean it blows to the west or from the west? So when you're watching the news, and it says we have a west wind. So that's a good question. Moorhead, what do you think?
Probably blowing from the west.
From the west. Okay. Now, also, this problem causes another issue because they start with bearing. They give you the south 50 degrees west. You cannot use 50 degrees to find the IJ form. You've got to convert it to a direction. Okay? So what does south 50 degrees west? That would be equivalent to what direction? Okay. Nathan, am I making any sense what I'm saying? A little bit. Sure? No? All right. What would the direction be here? So this is south 50 degrees west. That's 50 degrees. The direction would be starting at the x-axis, like normal. And Ryan, what do you think?
220.
So 220, because this is 50 degrees, that means that this here has to be 40. And then you do 180 plus 40. So south 50 degrees west will have a direction of 220 degrees. All right. So you gotta watch. You can't use 50 degrees. You gotta convert it to a direction. You'll get wrong values from there. All right. Now it says you got a west wind. It doesn't give you It doesn't give you a bearing or a direction. You gotta have an understanding what a west wind means. So here's the case. Here's my west wind. It's coming from the west. In this case, it makes a little bit more sense to draw it from the end of the first vector because that's how it's going to affect it. And so what's going to be the resultant, which will be the final path? Oh, I might get rid of all this here. And then if I connect this, that's going to be my final path for that. Because just like anything else, if a plane's flying into the wind, it's going to affect its speed. Or if it's flying with the wind, it's going to affect its speed. It's either going to speed it up or it's going to slow it down. Okay, it's going to, they talk about, does anybody know, is it quicker? I don't know if you fly a lot. Is it easier to fly or quicker to fly from east coast to west coast or west coast to east coast? Okay. West to east, because there's usually winds go from the west. So usually it get faster. It'll take you less time to go from, say, LA to New York than it will take you from go to New York to LA because of the winds on that. So now we got, what's the direction of the west wind? What is the direction of the west wind? Okay, and now if it helps you, you can think about moving it right here. What's that direction? 0 degrees. That's okay to have a 0 degree direction. I know sometimes you look at it like that doesn't make sense. That's okay. Direction 0 degrees. All right, so now let's put everything together. U will be the plane. V will be the wind. And so U will equal, what's the speed of it? 450? 450 times cosine of 220i plus sine of 220j. And then I'm going to go ahead and leave a room here, but I'm going to put v down underneath it. I'm going to skip a line. And v is 30 to 30, because that's the speed, times cosine of 0 degrees I plus sine of 0 degrees j. All right, see what you get for u and v. Nearest hundredth again. Jacob, you got it?
Yep.
All right, what do you got for you?
I got 427.45 is the magnitude.
Was that u plus v?
Negative 344.72 I.
Hold on. Give me time here. Negative what?
344. No, that's 14. No, that's 44. Yes, 0.72 I.
344.72.
Yes, 344. Yeah.
That was easy. What about for the j?
289.5.
Minus
Yes.
229.8. Did I hear him right? 85?
That's 289.25.
289.25.
0.25.
All right, I got to work on my hearing. 289.25. Is that right? Now we're good? All right. How about V? What do you got, Aaron Hess? What do you got for V?
I have 30I plus 0j.
30i plus 0j. Yeah, and it's okay to get that 0 because it's a horizontal. It's a horizontal vector, so it's not going to have a j part. It's not going to go up off that axis. So now you take u plus v. So u plus v, and then I get negative 344. Now that's negative 314.72 I. And that doesn't change, minus 289.25 j. All right, find your magnitude, which will be your speed. Sometimes they call it ground speed, because that's basically how far you're actually traveling based upon the wind with the effect of the wind. So the magnitude of u plus v is the square root . All right, I forgot to ask this. Which quadrant are we guaranteed to be in at this point? Now, obviously, from my picture, it looks obvious, but that's not always going to be the case. All right, so Josh, what quadrant are we going to be in?
Third quadrant.
It's got to be the third because they're both negative. Okay, the I and the J are negative. So we absolutely have to be in quadrant 3. And Jacob, what'd you give me for that speed? What'd you say, 427.25?
Yes.
2.45. That would be the resultant miles per hour. You got to watch now. Directions. You got to follow directions. They ask for the ground speed, and what else they ask for? Bearing. They got a bearing, not direction, bearing. So you got to understand how to find the bearing. For the bearing, so if you think about this, our final vectors in quadrant 3, we need to know this angle when we are done. Okay, it'll be south, and then it'll be that angle west. Okay, so if it's 22 degrees, but when we find the reference angle, we actually find that angle there. Okay, so the reference angle equals inverse tangent. Absolute value, I'm just going to make everything positive, 289.25 over 314.72 equals, I don't know what you get there.
42.59.
59? 42.59 degrees. Okay, so for our bearing, we need to take 90 minus that. Okay.
Mr. Judith, I have a story to tell you.
Story.
So we were just sitting in there talking about, this could potentially be their last math class that they ever take.
Oh, it could be.
Because for a lot of them, their gen ed math course could be taken up by pre-calc and this.
Right.
Unless they have to take like a statistics class or something like that, right? And so your daughter,
Ooh, where's this
she
going?
goes, so this is potentially the last math class that I ever have to take? And I said, yes. She goes, yes! I said, I'm telling your dad on you.
And she did not get the math gene.
She told me about how you would make her cry at the kitchen table, like making her study and do math.
That's an exaggeration.
No, that happens every day. She cried. I didn't make it. The math made her cry. Hey, have a good day.
Yeah, well, thanks.
Really?
Very true, you may not have to take another math course if you don't major, if you're majoring in engineering, don't forget about that. But if you're doing something else, that's not math, science related, you may never have to take another one. And then therefore, there's fewer tiers for you. What do we end up with there? That's gotta be 47.41?
Take two math classes.
South. All right, make sure that you write it in the proper form. South, 47.41 degrees west. Hey, flip that over. I gotta take a look at one more here. Or I want you, we're not gonna go through the whole thing, but I want you to just look at this here. All right, this is one from your book. It says, find a single force that must be added to the system of forces to obtain a system that is in equilibrium. What does equilibrium mean? Zero. It means it's static. It means it's not moving. Okay. Technically, how many forces are there? There are 1, 2, 3 forces. We've only added 2 forces together. If you want to find the sum of 3 forces, you just do the same thing. You put them all in IJ form, and you add all 3 of them up. Okay, then you add all 3 of the J's up. Same thing. And so in equilibrium, we're going to have to add a counter force to it. All right, now we're not going to get time to finish it today because I want you to have time to work on the homework. Your homework is to finish this if you haven't finished it. Okay. Now, the main thing I did ask you, hey, listen for 1 second. I did ask you to finish 1 through 8. Do number 9. Number 10 is a little bit tricky. I still want you to try it. I think a lot of you will be able to get it in here. You got to read it. But more than just thinking, I want you to check your answers. Don't just assume they're right. I want you to physically check each answer, make sure it's in the proper form. And then how do you check those answers? It's under modules. Oh, here, where's it at? It's under last Friday's work. So, or you can get there. Oh, what's going on here? Bless you. Now, if you want to get to the previous week's assignments, you can always hit the which arrow button is it? The back arrow button, and it'll be from Friday, or you can go to modules. And I don't have anything under the 9th yet because, like I said, I wanted to make sure I want to look at a couple of things. In chapter 7, it'll say section 7474 review worksheets. I don't know why it says sheets. But if you go there, it has the review key. All right, so that is part of your assignment, is to check your answers. Okay, check your answers. And then see me, or we have to fix anything.
Okay, let's adjusting for Wednesday. I think that's the problem.